Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haramai, and welcome to this week's episode of the Niche Cage Variety Show. We are recording this as the Blackcaps battle on against England, trying not to get smoked here in the second test, so excuse us if we do have some reactions, some
exaltations.
some moaning. But we are tracking that, and we have recorded a beautiful Patreon podcast talking all things Blackcaps, attacking the Blackcaps like England batters attack the Blackcaps bowling attack. We were hitting sixes, we were hitting fours, rotating the strike in our Patreon podcast, as we did break down a whole lot of Blackcaps test cricket stuff prior to recording this variety show. Also got a Kiwi-NRL Spotlight podcast on the Patreon feed as well. I am recording those every Monday during the NRL season, so all of which is reason to join the Patreon whānau, patreon.com/our niche cage. We're from the niche cage, theniche-cage.com. We send out our email newsletter every Monday and Friday as well. The nichecage.substack.com, sign up, and that comes to you with all our niche cage content, as well as extra yarn, such as glorious facts like Jack Leach bowling more overs of spin in Aotearoa than he has done in India. That was in the email dispatch yesterday. The Wildcard did 5 things about the Wellington Phoenix blokes and ladies. That's just an example of what we do in our email newsletter every Monday and Friday. Sign up, thenichecage.substack.com. We are going to do some mindfulness. Let's go mindfulness here. What do you got?
I've got a quote from Homer's Iliad. No man or woman born coward or brave can shun their destiny. Bit of classical Greek mythology stuff for you there.
I heard something similar maybe a few weeks ago. It was like you find your destiny on the path you take to escape it, or something like that. Destiny.
Yeah, I've heard something like that before.
Destiny meets you on the path you took to escape it. So shout out to Destiny. Who knows what our destiny is? We're not here to predict the future, but shout out to Destiny and whatever it means for yourself. We are going to hijack the leading headline banger take segment at the top of the variety show to big up the bro Kane Williamson. I'm curious, I left this quite general, quite vague in our prep notes. Share something about Kane Williamson to get the juices flowing here.
You mean Kane Williamson, the Blackcaps all-time leading test run scorer? That bloke? There's something about him. I don't know. I quite like the way that record has been passed along. Because I think Fleming had it for a while, I think Fleming nudged through and took it, and then Taylor had it for maybe, like, he surpassed Fleming and had it for maybe like a year before he retired, which I thought was because everyone knew Kane Williamson was going to come through and just bulldoze all the records. It was clear, certainly by the time Taylor was the leading run scorer, that was obvious. And so it was only ever going to be inevitable that he would pass Taylor. But I did like that there was this kind of, I don't know, the timing of it just worked out really well where Ross Taylor had it for like, I don't know, like a year or something, then retired with the record. And if you retire with the record, as far as I'm concerned, you get to hold that tag the rest of your life. Like you retired at that point, you were the leading run scorer, sweet ass. And then Williamson takes it over before too long. It's kind of like a passing of the torch thing. It worked out really nicely, just the timing of how that goes. But yeah, Williamson, what is he now? 26 test centuries. I think he's going to score a few more of those. He's going to get a few more runs as well. As one thing I remember writing about a few years ago is, does he actually have an opportunity to get to 10,000 test runs? And that's still up in the air because we don't play a whole lot of test cricket. He would probably have to play till he's 36, 37, 38 to do that, but it's still possible. And when you think about, like, I don't know. I just always get the thing about aggregate run scoring is you almost can't compare it to other countries because you get situations like Alistair Cook playing for the same amount of time and playing twice as many tests, or Joe Root is in the same bag. Way more test runs and hundreds than Williamson, but like 3 runs lower average per innings, which tells you perhaps a more important story. The fact that Kane Williamson has been on par for at least 5, probably more than that, years with the best batters in the world, despite the fact that we play such a pitiful amount of Test cricket. Although there's a balance in there because England also play too much Test cricket, and that's clear. Like they play too much Test cricket, skews their records, but also injures their players, leads to having to rotate dudes around and whatnot. Which fair play to Joe Root for the durability to get through that because he's one of the guys who plays every time. But yeah, for Williamson to be in that same category outside of the big few nations is alone incredible. But then also you compare it to what he's done compared to other New Zealanders, it's madness.
Kane Williamson's first for test runs, average of 53. No one else at the top of the Blackcaps test run scoring charts has an average over 50. Tells you all you need to know about Kane Williamson. Kane Williamson, though, he is 5th for ODI runs. Latudu Taylor's still first there. And Kane Williamson is 2nd for T20 international runs, Marty Cup. He is 1st for T20 runs. So Williamson he's still got a long way to go to be top run scorer in each format for Aotearoa, which I think he can do if he wants to keep playing cricket, and who's to say he can't? I'd also like to highlight Kane Williamson as an absolute monster when it matters most. In major tournaments, Kane Williamson at the T20 World Cup, highly respectable, borderline world class, T20 batting average of 33.28, strike rate of 113.8. That is exceptional in T20 World Cups. As we know, the Blackcaps always make the semi-finals of a T20 World Cup, just casually, low-key, no one really cares, but they do it. Kane Williamson, ODI World Cups, holy cow. Average of 56.93. That is ridiculous. And what do you know? The Blackcaps usually make the semi-finals of ODI World Cups as well, if not consecutive finals. And Kane Williamson in the World Test Championship. Kane Williamson is averaging 57.95. Disgusting. Like in these tournaments that we all put up on a pedestal, Kane Williamson is an absolute monster, and I want to big him up for that. I also want to highlight Kane Williamson. He's been the New Zealand poster boy for Gray Nichols, which is really impressive for him. I don't know where he ranks like internationally because Babar Azam is also Gray Nicks. But Kane Williamson, I think he came into professional cricket using the Puma bat. Shout out to the who's using what bat yarns that I do each summer, because I'm going to do that for the Sri Lanka series. Just need to do a bit of research there. But Kane Williamson came in using Puma, I think, and he was quickly ushered into a more prestigious Gray Nichols zone. And him staying with Gray Nichols, that reminds me of Latudu Taylor staying with GM his whole career. Tom Latham's been Kookaburra his whole career as well. So if you're one of the greats, you're going to have that status as opposed to be poster boy, headline, sponsor, guy. And also, what does Kane Williamson do that has like revolutionized batting? Well, the lofted drive was always pretty nice. You know, he's quick on the pull shot. But it's the soft hands. Like, Kane Williamson is soft hands. He's Mr. Soft Hands. Everyone else like loves to copy him. But Kane Williamson is Mr. Soft Hands, Senor Softy.
Senor Soft Hands.
That's a bit weird, but I'll roll with it. So, big up Kane Williamson. Any more Kane Williamson notes from yourself?
Well, I think there's a really fascinating mix of those last 2 points that you made, like the fact that he is a very delicate seems like the wrong word to use. I don't know, that classy, elegant's a good word, an elegant batsman, um, with those little nudges down to third man and the edges that don't carry because of his soft hands and things like this. And then also being the poster boy for Gray Nichols. The funny thing is, like growing up, Gray Nichols was the bat. What I remember is the bat of like the hard hitting all rounders because it was Chris Cairns and it was Jacob Warren. So there was like 15 years there where Gray Nichols was sort of, it was the bat you got if you wanted to hit sixes coming in just before the wicketkeeper. And then now it's the Kane Williamson bat. So that alone is also revolutionary. And then also to the point of delivering when it matters most. You know what else is a pretty handy knock is when you score 130 top scoring following on to put your team in a position to potentially win in the test match that's going on right now. Which exaltation time, 2 quick wickets. I don't know if you saw that, 2 quick wickets. England are 80 for 5. We might actually win that one. So
easy
if
on,
they do,
easy on.
Well, the fact that they're even in a position after following on, I don't know how often that's happened, but the reason it is because Kane Williamson scored a big 100. That's him delivering in a really tough situation once again, because that's what he does. And I'll tell you, my favorite Kane Williamson stat almost got broken last year. He wasn't at his best and he missed a lot of test matches last year. Then he goes and scores 200 not out in Pakistan. And then very early this year, he gets his 100 there at the Basin against England, which means it was a fragile thing for a little while there, but it means that he has now scored a test century in 12 consecutive calendar years. You go 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. I think that's right. Might be 2014. I think he debuted in 2012 and then didn't get one in the second year of his test career. I should have had it in front of me to look it up. But incredible consistency. Because I'll tell you who hasn't done that. Steve Smith hasn't, because he had a year suspended. And he also wasn't at that level for as long. David Warner, similar story there. He's had ups and downs now. Virat Kohli hasn't scored a test 100 for like 3 years or something, I'm pretty sure. I think he broke his streak in other formats, but I don't think he's got a test one. Joe Root's had a year or two where he didn't score a test 100. He's probably the one who would be most in contention. I don't know, but Babar Azam is just younger and hasn't been around. He hasn't been playing cricket that long, like test cricket that long, let alone to have scored 100 every one of those years. No one else has done that. I wouldn't be surprised if no one in history has done that. I don't know how to research this. I don't know how I'd look it up, but Jesus, I mean, first of all, you've got to have scored at least 12 test centuries to even be in the conversation for that. So I don't know, maybe I just look up the stat thing for everyone who's got at least 1200s, but because there can't be that many people. But that's incredible consistency from Kane Williamson. He's also, I'm pretty sure, scored 100 against every opponent he's played. So that's another thing, which is he's completed the set,
I just zoned out there thinking where I'd put Kane Williamson in the greatest batter ever rankings. I'd say third. You got old mate Donny, the big Donny, the biggest Donny of them all, Don Bradman.
The biggest Donny.
He is first. I'd say AB de Villiers is second and Kane Williamson third greatest batter ever. Better than any other batter playing cricket right now. Let's go. Get statistical here, mate. And I'm going, you've got Grizzlies stats here again. Just make it as simple as possible for us, because last time you dished up some Stephen Adams stats, I got lost in the numbers. It was a bit too statistical, so just keep it sharp.
Well, the good thing about a podcast is you can pause and go back and listen to it again, and take notes and whatnot if you need to. But anyway,
shout out to everyone listening, taking notes to our podcast. It's a big one.
If there are, I'm impressed. So I want to at least give people that opportunity. This is just lifted straight from the Kiwi Steve piece last week, because as you know, Stephen Adams hasn't been playing. He hurt his knee. He fell on it. He hasn't been. He's been missing for pretty much about a month, and was sort of hoping he'd come back after the All-Star break. It's been 2 games. He hasn't quite yet, although I see he's back to 5-on-5 practice now, so it's very close. It's imminent. He's almost there. But these stats are from during the All-Star break, so it doesn't include the 2 most recent, which was a loss and a win for the Memphis Grizzlies. Just some things looking at their ranks where they were up to the point when he got injured, like the game he got injured back through the start of the season, and then all the games since then. So they had a 31-15 record, for example, which was third best in the NBA since then. 4-7 at the All-Star break, 23rd best in the NBA over that span. They've obviously now 5-8 under that time. That's just an example of what we're dealing here with. So just breezing through some of these points per game. 5th in the NBA, dropped all the way to 25th without Steven Adams. What else is nice here? 3-point percentage is a very interesting one because it wasn't fantastic. They were 20th out of 30 teams. That has dropped to 28th without Steven Adams. You would think Steven Adams should be affecting that, wouldn't you? Because he's not a 3-point shooter, right? But he sets screens. He creates spacing that way. He gets offensive rebounds as well against disjointed defensive sets. That stuff leads to spacing down the line. You don't have to just be a big man who can shoot in order to get spacing. An open shot's an open shot, no matter how you get to it. Offensive rebounds per game, no surprises. That's gone from 1st down to 12th. Total rebounds per game, 1st down to 22nd somehow. Their offensive rating has gone from 9th in the league to 26th. Their defensive rating has gone from 1st to 9th. Offensive rebounding percentage, so how many per opportunities they actually get as a team, 2nd down to 18th. Effective field goal percentage, no, that's the wrong one. Second chance points is what I'm looking at here. Second chance points, we know what an offensive rebounding mastermind this dude is, gone from 2nd down to 20th without him. Opposition points in the paint's gone from 4th to 9th. Where's some other good ones? It's finished with screen assists as well, gone from 3rd down to 17th. Like all these little things, these are areas we know Steven Adams dominates in. And you see, it's not just that he dominates in, it's that no one else can do what he does. Because when he's not there, the Memphis Grizzlies have quite simply just not been anywhere near as good of a team. Everyone else is available. Like the rest of their starters, they're all Ja Morant's there, Desmond Bane is there, Dylan Brooks is there, Jaren Jackson Jr. is there. But Steven Adams isn't. And during this span without him, they've had a losing record. And I think that pretty much goes to show, like I've seen a lot of people saying they shouldn't be as reliant on a dude like Steven Adams as they are. Well, maybe not, but they are that reliant. And without him, we've seen pretty clearly, as clear a case as you get of the old saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. I think that's what we've had with Steven Adams while he's been injured. Luckily, should be back very imminently, before long. In the next couple of games, he should return to the court for the Grizzlies, and I expect they'll probably go reverting back to their pre-Steven Adams injury stats and pretty much everything there.
Kate Ebrahim had scores of 89 and 106 not out for Otago in the Halliburton Johnston Shield. Otago didn't make the final. The final will be a repeat of the Super Smash final between Canterbury and Wellington. I'll do a massive preview in the next couple of days for that. However, Kate Ebrahim just finished her 4th HBJ Shield summer, averaging over 60. And we can extrapolate that out to 6 seasons averaging over 40 in the HBJ Shield. Big up Kate Ebrahim, absolute run scoring extraordinaire in the New Zealand Women's One-Day Competition HBJ Shield. Let's get deep into the Mangroves. You've got some football Ferns who I'm pretty confident they can win one game at the World Cup in their pool, and I think they're going to get a draw in the other game. So they're actually going to have 2 positive results at the World Cup. There you go. What's in your Mangroves?
Nice. So if you get 2 positive results, you're a chance of making it through to the next round, as long as they don't get thrashed in that other game. I'm glad to hear you say that, because it's nice to get some actual positivity about the footy Ferns at the moment. They didn't have the best window most recently, 3 games, and they lost all 3 of them, didn't score a goal, including a bit of a hiding at the hands of Portugal. But I've got some myth-busting ideas that I want to throw out about the football Ferns, because it's just stuff that's been like sort of rankling, where it's like, there's so much context being missed behind these things. The first one is that this is New Zealand that we're talking about. This is not a footballing power nation. There's these expectations that are on the football Ferns, where everyone's not only disappointed, but like apoplectic about the fact that they weren't able to beat Portugal and Argentina. I think we can all name some pretty handy footballers who've come from those two countries. We don't have the resources or the player base to compete with most countries out there when they get serious, when they put all their resources towards these things. We don't have proximity to the top professional rounds. We've got a team in the A-League now. That's cool. That's nice. It's only existed for a year and a half. It's not quite like Portugal, who have teams playing in the Champions League every year. One professional team. Football Ferns hardly play home games. I'll explore this more in the written terms, but just basically, in what world should Aotearoa ever be expected to beat Portugal and Argentina on the regular at football? I don't know what world that is. Second point, Ferns were just not at full strength in these games. Not even close, in fact. They didn't have Rhea Percival, Rebecca Stott, CJ Bott and Ali Riley only played the first game. Annalie Longo wasn't there. Liv Chance didn't play the last game. Verkessen and Elite, they weren't at the tour as well, both injured. Do people think we have this inexhaustible depth of talent to simply replace first 11 players? Because first of all, I don't think any team does. I think anytime, anywhere in the world, in any sport, your best player is injured, you can't replace them, because if you can, they wouldn't be your best players. It's actually something we talked about a little bit, I think, on the variety, not the variety show, the Patreon one just beforehand, about the Blackcaps trying to replace Trent Bolt. It's like, well, you can't, because there's no one as good as him. That's why Trent Bolt is Trent Bolt. Similar deal here with the Football Ferns, except they were missing half their first 11 squad, and there is a frustration here with that. This seems to happen all the time. There's a lot of these windows where it's like so and so has a minor niggle and we're not going to risk them, sort of thing. At some point, maybe it's tricky because the clubs pay the bills, but it is a frustrating thing where that seems to keep happening. But they've also just had players like Rhea Percival who've been long-term injured. Not going to be as good without Rhea Percival. She's probably the Football Ferns' best player, or she was when she got hurt. Another point: Football Ferns have never won a World Cup game before. They've played 15 World Cup games. They've been to 5 World Cups. They've never won one before. We're hoping they will, because they're hosting the next one. It's obviously the best opportunity they'll ever get. But also, they're trying to do something they've never done before. It's another reason to maybe be a little bit cautious with the expectations and just demanding things of a team that has not achieved them in the past. That's a lot to ask. It doesn't mean they shouldn't. It doesn't mean we're not hoping to. It just means be realistic with it. At least acknowledge that point. There's also an idea that there's this just heaps of continuity with the Football Ferns, that they pick the same players over and over. And I was actually surprised to look at the last World Cup squad and notice that 8 of the 23 players in that tournament have since retired. This was 4 years ago. It's not that long ago, 2019 World Cup. 8 of those players have retired, and that doesn't include Amber Hearn, who missed that tournament with injury, which was an injury that later forced her to retire, but wasn't in the squad for that reason. You got Abby Ursig, Katie Duncan, Sarah Gregorius, Rosie White amongst those 8 players who are Centurions. Amber Hearn, your highest ever goal scorer. Again, it's the same thing about the boundless depth idea. It's how do you replace players like that? You don't. And it takes time to build up the experience that you've lost as well. And a lot of young players have come through into the team at the moment, which is another point. But the wildest fallacy of all is this thing, and I don't know why I keep hearing this, but it generally seems to come from people of the older male talkback type, listener type persuasion, I will say, is this idea that nobody ever criticizes the Football Ferns. When are they going to be held accountable for their lack of results? Absolute madness. All I hear about them at the moment is criticism. Too much criticism, I would argue. Ask the players if they feel like they get off easy with the reaction they get from the public, because I think that's just a ridiculous idea. And I think the exact same thing is said often about the White Ferns cricket as well. It's no one ever criticizes. Yes, they fucking do. They always criticize them. They've consistently underperformed at tournaments. That's how you get criticism. Let alone the fact that by saying they don't get criticized, why don't they get criticized? That's a criticism in itself. So it's a self-defeating idea to start with. But and I'm not saying that criticism isn't valid. I'm just saying it exists. It's definitely there. The idea that the Football Ferns, or the White Ferns for that matter, don't get criticized is an absolute joke, because it is not true.
Something I just completely, you mentioned the White Ferns, but I was thinking about this with what you're saying about the Football Ferns. might just inject a White Ferns segment here because I had two crystal clear ideas. And I wrote this in the White Ferns T20 World Cup debrief. The problem isn't women's domestic cricket. The problem is the White Ferns. Right? Like, women's cricket in New Zealand, the issue is not domestic cricket, it's White Ferns selection and all the weird shit that goes on with the White Ferns. The White Ferns also don't win as many games as they could because they choose potential over performance. So any other sport, if you're looking at the Blackcaps, like, who's the youngster? We need to get some young players. Please, please select someone under 25 for the Blackcaps. That is potential over performance. So when you go younger, you're sacrificing some winning sport. You're sacrificing winning cricket, winning rugby league, winning football in the Football Ferns case. Like, if you go younger, you're probably not going to win as many games. But let me swing into I'm already deep in the mangroves. Like, I stay deep in the mangroves. Let's be honest. I don't need an introduction.
We're already there, yeah.
Like, I am a hermit of the mangroves. I'm sure there's maybe a bird, maybe like I'm the pukeko of the mangroves. Let's say something like that. I'll
You're an electric eel.
No, because then
you probably don't want to go subterranean with the mangroves dwelling. Yeah, you probably want to stay above water level.
Then I might as well be in Parramatta because the Parramatta Eels are in the NRL, and I'm definitely nowhere near Australia, so I definitely want some native birds up in my mangroves. But let's take a deep breath. And let's get deep into the NRL, Kiwi-NRL mangroves, where I just want to lay out some, again, key themes that I tend to do quite a lot during the season just to set things up. Warriors. Always think about the Warriors in relation to the Broncos and the Bulldogs. If the Warriors are ahead of the Broncos and the Bulldogs, something really positive is happening because everyone in Australia loves the Broncos, they love the Bulldogs, they don't like the Warriors as far as winning games goes. So I think a lot of people, they'll have the Warriors below the Broncos and the Bulldogs. Use that as a measurement and a realistic, sensible hype gauge of where the Warriors are at. If they are ahead of the Broncos and the Bulldogs, they're really, really good. If they are below them, well, they're on track with how many people thought they would be. None of those three teams are at the top of my Kiwi-NRL power rankings, though. Those three teams are the Panthers, the Roosters, and the Storm. Panthers, Fisher Harris, Moses Leota, dominant. One thing about the Panthers is all their local players that have come through the Panthers system, they now command greater salaries. They're moving on to other clubs to get more money. Of course, we know the Panthers, one of the most celebrated, junior pathways in the NRL. And their next tier of players are also Kiwi-NRL players. Preston Ricky is in the forward pack. He's hunting an NRL debut this season. He's from up north, Hokianga region, same as James Fisher-Harris. Dayon Amatuanai. He played Jersey Flag, New South Wales Cup for the Panthers last season, and he is a Whiti Tira Junior, which is down in Otaki, which I think is like either Manawatu, Horowhenua, or Wellington. I'm not sure on where like the exact region that is, but it's on that around Horowhenua, Manawatu coastline on the west side. He might also make his debut for the Panthers this season as a winger. So some of this Panthers depth is from Aotearoa, and in the case of Preston Ricky and Amatuanai, they're from the Warriors system. As is Francis Manuleilua, who will probably be playing Jersey Flag when that season starts. Storm. Well, Jerome Hughes is the leader now. And I think Nelson Asofa-Solomona is going to be, he's going to put himself, if I think he's already there, but Asofa-Solomona, he's going to be in that Fisher Harris Joseph Tapine realm. And that is ridiculous. So shout out Asofa-Solomona, love his footy. Storm also have Will Warbrick, who should make his debut this season. And for those who don't know, his ancestors started the All Blacks, to the best of my knowledge. They played League, Union, and AFL in a tour of Australia and England. Like, he has the bloodlines. And the Storm are just an excellent team. They've rejigged their Kiwi-NRL recruitment. The Roosters, on the other hand, are just flush with Kiwi-NRL talent. Brandon Smith, he joins the Roosters. Now they got Joey Manu, Jarewadia Hargraves, Satili Tupanuia. Got some really interesting fringe talent, but they also have Kiwi-NRL talent at every level. There's a young bloke, Kilamasi, Demetrius Kilamasi, I think his name is. He's starting fullback in under 16s or under 17s. You got 4 players playing for the Roosters SG ball team every week. They'll have some players in Jersey Flegg, and they will be one of the best NRL teams as well. Parramatta Eels, they might be an X-Factor team. However, I prefer the Sharks as my X-Factor Kiwi-NRL team. Some of my favourite Kiwi-NRL talent, Ronaldo Mulatalo, Braden Hamlin-Uele, got Mawene Hiroti from the Taranaki region. Also got this young bloke, Jensen Taumoipiao. He's also from the Taranaki region. Keo Ero is from the Cook Islands, spent some time in Auckland. But again, with the Sharks, you got Braden Hamlin-Uele, big bopper at NRL level. Salisi Ata, big bopper at New South Wales Cup level, hunting NRL footy. And the one and only Felix Fa'atili, starting prop for the Sharks SG ball team from Christchurch. He's got 4 tries in 4 games. So, you know. Question time. My question to you is, what did you learn from the Wellington Phoenix away trip? 4 games away. What did you learn about Wellington Phoenix footy?
What did I learn? The thing is, I'm not sure there was anything on display there that wasn't already evident from the Phoenix. I think you saw in the Western United game, for example, when they score first and then get a second goal, they're quite good. When they saw in some of the games before that, the 2 losses they had before in the immediately preceding ones, when they score first and don't get that second goal, they leave themselves vulnerable, and that's an issue that's plagued them all season. But you also saw in that Central Coast game that they're pretty resilient, and they were not at their best there. They were struggling with probably the fitness and fatigue of 4 straight away games in a row. And even the one before that was in Palmerston North. Their last home game was in Palmerston North. So it's been more than a month since they played a game in Wellington. But they do have 3 out of 4 home games coming up in Wellington. And I think what I learned most importantly from the Phoenix over this 4-game road trip, which was at the 2 games in, 2 losses, it was at risk of kind of derailing their season a little bit. But then they got a win, then they got a battle and draw against 10, eventually 9 men from Central Coast. I think what I learned is just that they are a resilient lot, and points away from home are hard to come by. Points at home is when you want to cash in for the Wellington Phoenix. They got through a tough road span, and they now, like, the next thing is to start winning these home games coming up immediately, because that was the toughest part of their season, I think. And to get 4 points from 4 games, it's okay. It's not amazing, but it's okay. It keeps things going, and they cash in at home now. Back in return, first of all, you remember a couple of weeks ago when I asked you to pick the over or unders for spin wickets in this England versus New Zealand series? I said it clearly way too low at 9.5. You went overs. You were completely correct. First test, there were 5 wickets taken by spins, which is about on course. Michael Bracewell got 3 and Jack Leach got 2. Second test, so far, there have been 11 wickets taken by spin, unexpectedly at the Basin Reserve. But there you go. Bracewell's got a couple. Jack Leach had 8, including 5 from the second innings. And Joe Root got 1 as well. Maybe Michael Bracewell will take 5 more and bowl New Zealand to victory as well. So there's that. Sticking to cricket, however.
Just on that, you said unexpectedly, but I expected that to happen.
At the Basin compared to the Mount, more than double the wickets? I
went over. That was part of my equation, I know these things.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. I should have doubled it. If it was 19.5, that would have been really interesting at the moment with 16 and 5 wickets to go and the ball looking to turn a little bit by what I can see. But it's not spinners I want to ask you about, it's seamers, because the Blackcaps don't seem to have Trent Bolt services in Test cricket anymore, at least the confusing situation, but there you go. Neil Wagner's looking a little bit older than he has in the past. Pace perhaps down a little bit, maybe a little bit less effective a couple of series. Selvig and Henry are doing all good, but it does feel like maybe Tickner Kugelheim, a bit of a play, like sort of gap holders there, placeholders for the team. Who are the seamers coming through? Like, what's the depth looking like, domestically speaking?
I'm going to create a different answer because I do want to answer your other question in this time slot. But all Super Smash long, I was talking about Willow, Rourke, and Zach Folkes for Canterbury. And that is to say, if you follow the niche case, you know who all the best young players across every sport are. I've got some of them behind me on the rugby league thing, on the YouTube video, the wildcards covering all the footy, all the basketball. If you follow the niche case, you know who the best young players are. All Super Smash, all season long, I've been hammering home Willow, Rourke, and Zach Folkes for Canterbury. So maybe tap in, and you might be aware of who some of these names are. Not that I think either of them are coming into the Blackcaps team this summer, but I'm just trying to prove a point here because I also like your other question. Go ahead.
The other question is pick an intriguing player, your most intriguing player for the Warriors leading into the 2023 season.
Tom Alley. He is a Mount Albert junior, but he also went to Rotorua Boys High School. He played league and union at Rotorua Boys High School. I think he was in the same team as Hayes Perham at that time. And the thing about Tom Alley is he just needs to shine in his role. 20 minutes off the bench, run hard as a mofo, 10 meters per carry. And then, like, as I say, Griffin Neame, he was shining in that role and he earned a Kiwis call-up. You just need to shine in your role. Tom Alley's role is going to be add power off the bench. And I'm curious to see how that develops and progresses over the season because he might be required to play more minutes for one game, less minutes for another game. But he's got some oomph. He's got power. Don't never say leg speed because you're just fast or you're not fast. And I think Tom Alley is fast. He's powerful. He's robust. And that's what the Warriors need. Musical jam. Big up this new project from Christoph Altruente and Hone Be Good. Hone Be Good, just pure poetry. And if you get him on top of some Christoph Altruento production, that is fabulous to listen to. This is on Bandcamp right now. Just search Christoph Altruento on Bandcamp. Curious to see if it pops up on YouTube as part of Altruento's page there. Your musical jam?
New tune from English folk singer Naima Bock, who was one of my albums of the year last year. She's got, I think it's a standalone single rather than something leading to an album, but it's very good and sort of progressing the sound a little bit, it's always exciting to hear. English post-punk band as well, Sorry, have a new album, which I haven't heard yet, but I'm looking forward to. But then other than that, I am absolutely fizzed for the new Unknown Mortal Orchestra album, which there's been a couple singles out. So this is which one is it? One of the Ruben Nielsen of the Nielsen brothers. So there's Ruben Nielsen, there's Cody Nielsen. Ruben is UMO, and Cody Nielsen does his own stuff and also produced the new album, co-produced the new album, and was the main man in the Mint Chicks back in the day as well. Another great Kiwi band. So the lead singles from this new UMO album, which is called 5, Roman numerals 5, absolutely fantastic. I cannot wait for the album, which comes out in about 3 weeks. So fizz for that one.
Big up yourself. Big up Aotearoa. Love yourself. Stay beautiful. We'll be back on Thursday with a big episode of the Niche Cast. Kia kaha. Chicha.